Hey everybody, continuing our series of the best of 2017, I'm going to be talking about my favorite board game that came out in 2017. And I'm going to give it to Colonial Twilight, which is the newest coin game series. I didn't play that many games this year, but I think Colonial Twilight is good enough and one of my favorite systems in the coin system that I'm going to give it the award over something like Terraforming Mars, which kind of let me down a little bit in the end. But Colonial Twilight is the newest game in the coin series. Coin stands for counterinsurgency. There's a whole bunch of them. There's like Fire in the Lake, Cuba Libre, the Andean Abyss and stuff. There's a whole bunch of games in this series. They're all based on historical events, and they take a kind of counterinsurgency approach where there is a overwhelming superpower going up against forces of insurgency. Normally the games are 4 players, and each player controls one of the factions in the side, such as like in the Vietnam game, you get the Viet Cong, the ARVN, the US, and the North Vietnamese. And Colonial Twilight is the first 2-player game of the coin system, and it takes place in the French-Algerian War. So one side plays the Algerian independence faction and the FLN, I think they're called, and then the other side plays the French troops and government. And it's good. I like the fact that it's 2 players. It might be, getting into coin, this might be one of the better options. I think Cuba Libre is always the other option based on how simple it is, but the Colonial Twilight really works well and is very streamlined because it's only a 2-player thing. I'd like to see more of those 2-player games going forward. I hardly ever have a chance to play it with real people because no one's particularly interested in playing it. So I usually either almost always play against myself. There are bots in the game you can run, but I don't like running the bots for whatever reason, so I just like to play the 2 sides. And with the 4-player coins, it was difficult to keep track of who was doing what, and it was a lot of like rule upkeep because each faction does its own thing and has their own moveset. So having a 2-player version where you only have to really memorize the 2 parts, and one of them is the quote-unquote computer part, it's really much simpler to get to play and understand and play effectively, and it simplifies things. It keeps things much more manageable with only 2 players. So I really like that aspect. It works perfectly as a 2-player game. It's probably something I think Coin should explore doing more non-4-player games. But it's the coin system. It always works well. The historical setting of the Algerian War is not particularly interesting to me here. Thematically, I prefer things like Vietnam and the American Revolution, although I don't really like the American Revolution coin game. But yeah, the sort of initiative track, which determines who goes first, has changed a little bit because of a 2-player game. And I think it's really kind of one of the more ingenious things where you have this little track that the first person selects one of the events or one of the options that they want to go in, and then the next person can choose any of the spaces adjacent to that marker track. So you can still do the coin thing of playing against your opponent, but at the same time it has this neat little mechanic of opening up the options in like the flow chart, the path of play within it. And it's good. I think it's really clever. It's a good way to sort of but to get around the 4-player limitations of the other games and keep it a coin-feeling system while in a new, very easy way to follow. Outside of that, the components are fantastic. It's always GMT games are always top-notch. Looks great, feels great. It's a very, substantial game. It's very impressive. It's very rules heavy, I suppose. A lot of people, you always have questions with the coin games because you always forget and the different versions of the games change and everything like that. But it's good. I highly recommend it. If you don't want to play Terraforming Mars anymore, you can go play Colonial Twilight, which is the newest coin game. Came out in 2017, and it is my game of the year for 2017, at least board game wise. Up next, we're going to have music. You guys can check that out in the next day or 2. Thanks. See ya.